Welcome to another episode of Behind the Strategy, challenging your perspective, motivating your mind, and simplifying your strategy.
With today's inspiring guest sharing what's behind their own strategy, so you can boost your business and love your life that little bit more.
Make sure you pop that subscribe button and share with someone who needs this today. So from down inside the lab, because she burns in sunlight, your host, Kate Whitley.
Thank you. And I do. Some have said I'm a bit of a firecracker. And I'd like to introduce you to my next guest, who is definitely the firecracker colleague that you would love to have at your side, Jo Wildsmith. And what I love talking about with you, Jo, is pretty much anything, because you're always very bubbly, you're always very positive, you always to me come across as somebody who's like, you know what, well, this happens, let's just move on. Huge big welcome for being here. Thank you for joining me on Behind the Strategy.
Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, it's so funny because in my mind, I think I'm a right miserable cow. So it's really funny that you see me as so bubbly and happy.
Is that something that's behind the strategy then? Are you really good at smoke and mirrors, did you say?
Perhaps. I did always want to be an actress. Maybe I'm just very good at putting it on.
That's actually really interesting. So because you are the pod queen, you teach print on demand, you do print on demand, you're building your empire. But honestly, when I think about us all as children, I've never met a child that says, oh, when I grow up, I want to do print on demand. No. So was that what you wanted to be? Was it an actress?
Fully enough, yeah. So print on demand wasn't invented then. The internet wasn't invented then. I think they just about had television. But yeah, well, two things. I wanted to either be an actress or a journalist. But the reason I wanted to be a journalist was because it began with Jo. So that's really tenuous. Not a good career move because of that.
So what happened?
Well, my parents split up when I was really young. And so my mum, to get out away, had been on holiday to the South Coast. So she decided that she wanted to live in Bournemouth. So we upped sticks from the Midlands and moved to Bournemouth. Well, Paul, actually, because she wanted me to go to the girls' school there. And so I absolutely loved it. I had the best childhood. I was roller skating to the beach every moment that I wasn't at school.
That's exciting. That's a great way to get to
wonderful. Yeah. I absolutely loved it. And in my heart now, and everything I plan for is to get a house back in Poole so that I can give my family somewhere to go where they can be near the beach. That's what it's all about. So what you asked me, obviously, was about how I ended up doing what I'm doing. So I went into hotels. It was the recession, Maggie's recession, and people couldn't afford to go on holiday. So hotels in Bournemouth were booming. So I went into hotels, went into hotel reception, hotel management. And then my big sister started flying. And I was like, I'd like to do that. I like the uniform. I like the hat. So I discovered I'm not very nice at 4:00 in the morning. I don't like putting lipstick on and having to be nice to people. I am clumsy. It's amazing how many times I would spill coffee on people and say, oh, I hit an air pocket. We hit an air pocket. And they'd say, I didn't feel anything. And I'd be like, well, you're sitting down. And things like that. It would really...
I'm going to have to interrupt you. Did you actually go along and say, coffee? Tea, or maybe even me.
Yeah. Oh, there was a lot of fun, a lot of things we did. And in fact, recreated one of the things we did the weekend before last, because I went away with my girlfriends and there was a steep staircase. So we used a tray and slid down the steep staircase, because in the airlines, what we used to do, sometimes at the beginning or the end of a season, you'd have a completely empty plane either going out or coming back, depending. So we used to sit on a tray and go all the way down the centre aisle during takeoff and landing. It was brilliant. And then hit the back galley. So, let's do it again. Why not? So, yeah, I was in Orlando and a captain said to me, why are you doing this? You clearly don't like it. You clearly have a brain. So I was like, yeah, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying stewardesses don't the cabin crew don't have brains. You have to be really clever actually to learn.
You do, yeah.
You're actually there purely waiting for an accident, And while you're there, you may as well serve tea, coffee, and perhaps a light meal, because really everything you're there for is when things go wrong. So please don't think I'm saying that. I'm absolutely not saying that, but I was frustrated and it wasn't me at all.
I actually get that completely, because some people know, some people don't know, but I had a bit of a burnout a few years ago and I decided to do something completely different, and I learned how to drive a double-decker bus.
Wow.
I was introduced to the most amazing people who are bus drivers, and oh my gosh, people, oh, I'm just a bus driver. No, I tell you what, these bus drivers are some of the most amazing people. They're customer service focused. They can actually sit into situations like for hours on end. The conditions aren't always brilliant, long hours driving. And one of the strategies that they use, and it seems to me behind that strategy that pilot spotted, was that you try and make things fun. Is that something that you still do now?
Yes. Yeah. So you end up playing little games. One of the things my sister did was she bought 2 very simple ladies and gents stickers. And as we know, the airline toilets are unisex. So what she would do, she would stick if a lady went in, she would stick gents on the door. So they'd come out, see the sign and be like, oh, in front of a whole plane full of people. And so you end up having to do these little tricks and things. But just to make it more fun, and have you seen 3040? Oh my goodness, and all of that. But so I digress. I came home from that flight and decided I was doing a degree. So I went off and did a degree randomly. And that's how I started off on this journey. I went into exports and shipping, and from there ended up going into sales, was a sales rep for 25 years. And then, so out on the road, then couldn't do that anymore because of a health issue. I had to have both my hips replaced. So suddenly driving 30, 40,000 miles a year wasn't going to happen.
It seems to me that you are a people person. You joined the airline, you were dealing with people, you did sales. Oh my gosh, don't you meet people? So your whole years have been with completely different types of people from all walks of life, and the whole diversity of the psychology of what people need and want, that's got to have seeped through, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting you say from all walks of life. So when I was selling, I would sometimes be at board level with the CEO and lots of people around them and selling like that with a big old flip chart. Other times it would be people who I'd ask them to sign the order, because it was back in the days of paper, ask them to sign the order, and they'd be like,
yeah, listen here first, folks. We used to have paper.
Yeah. and it'd be like, I can't. And I'd be like, well, just put a cross, because it was that diverse, the people that I would be selling to.
Yeah. So sort of shifting forward, what sort of habits and strategies have you had to put into place that keeps you inspired, that keeps you motivated? And are these sort of habits and strategies that you had when you were younger? Are they new ones? What do you do? What is behind that?
I'm a massive list maker. I have to. And I find I have to rely on lists more and more as I get older. I mean, I'm blaming Davina for everything, but my memory is not what it was. I forget things all the time. And if you saw the documentary recently, you'll know what I mean. But I just forget really stupid things. So I just have to make lists now. I've always got a pad. That is something I've always done, had a pad by the bed. And that just has always worked for me, because otherwise I'll lie there stewing on whatever it is I need to remember. I'll wake up in the morning and I won't remember, and it'll drive me mad, and I'll spend all day thinking, I know there was something. So if I write it down, then I can let it go, and in theory, go straight to sleep. It doesn't always work.
That is actually one of the best pieces of advice and tips that I also use and also share with people, because I like to surround myself with positive people, but even positive people, we go through times where things are not always what I would say negative, but just perhaps a bit scrambled. And that could be through health, it could be through situation, whatever's going on. And we have great ideas and we feel like we can conquer the world, but we just have to remember we have to go and design the logo first. And oh my gosh, which colours should I use? And then the initial thought of the world domination thing has gone out of the window now, and we're actually down the path of the perhaps, the details.
Absolutely, get stuck in the minutiae.
Yeah, so I think to have a brain dump pad, I've actually got one up on a Google Doc as well. And I just get everything out there. And then I think, right, I don't have to think about that now. And I have also sometimes made voice notes to myself just so that I can remember, or written things down, because I don't want to lose it.
Yeah, the other thing, taking photos. There's a reason I've got 22,000 photos on this little thing. It's because I see something and I think, that YouTube video I need to watch, that I need to do, that I need to do. And it's just so easy to just take a photo and then know that I'm going to find that, and it'll all ping back to me.
We're talking about you keeping yourself inspired, motivated, getting ideas out. I mean, that's a really good strategy to have, to keep things in place, to put lists and prioritize. Is there somebody that has inspired you, that you sort of carried with you from a young age? And there's a lot of people out there with some amazing inspirational perspectives. And you could probably pluck 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people who have been quite influential. Mm-hmm. Well, what I actually am talking about is who has been sort of inspiring you, and it can be you, if you believe in you, and motivated you, that you've pulled through.
It's quite interesting because my parents, to some extent, so as I say, my parents split up when I was really quite young, and my dad had his own business and absolutely loved having his own business. And he would say to me, when I was out selling, I was very successful in my sales career, and I would be out selling at 6 o'clock at night when everybody else, it was a male dominated industry, everybody else was out on the golf course. They'd all finished at 1 so they could go and play golf, and I'd still be bashing away and keeping going. And he would ring me or message me, they did have text in those days, that's one thing, with workers of the world unite and all this, just to sort of say, keep plugging away, you've got this, you can do this. Whereas my mum, so I went up and started to get into sales management and things. My mum was always, there's too many chiefs, not enough Indians, and always totally the opposite. So I felt like I was sort of standing up for the soul opener type situation. And then as time's gone on, my father passed away and my mum has sort of taken on that role now. And the last couple of years while I've been building this business, it's fair to say there's been quite a few people who haven't believed in me, and have pretty much everyone told me to just go and get a job. And I couldn't, because I knew this is what I have to do. This is what I'm meant to do. And my mum has turned into my dad as my massive cheerleader now. And she could see, because she knows me so well, she could see that it's what lights me up. It's what I have to do. I can't work for someone else. I'm a belligerent thing if I work for somebody else. I don't like being told what to do, and I particularly don't like being told what to do when it's something that's clearly something you've told me to do just to get rid of me so that I go off and do it. If I had my way, schools, when they teach, would be teaching people things that actually could get used. So they could go ahead and use it rather than just...
It's a very archaic system.
Just throwing these notes away. And the same with universities. So much of what I did at uni could have been used. It could have been useful to someone.
No, absolutely. My eldest daughter is a head teacher of a primary school, and she's brought in new innovations of helping keep people interested. And she went through a phase of, homework is not the biggest deal. What is the point of the homework? What has its purpose? Is it just because of the sake of, you've got to deliver, you've got to give some homework, so give them this? I mean, I remember a teacher just grabbing some spellings, giving them to my daughter as she walked out. She was quite young at the time, and the spelling of spaghetti was wrong. Because it was just like, oh gosh, I've got to do this, and there was no double checking. And so yes, I think you're absolutely right. And what it seems to me is that you've had those family beliefs and family values which have helped you be where you are, and you're bringing that into your own family, aren't you? Because you're carrying on that and you're stepping into like your parents were.
Yeah. So after my own divorce, I went through a period of extreme poverty because I had the worst time when my hips were at their worst. So I would go out. By this point, all the sales companies had made us all self-employed. So if I didn't bring an order in, I didn't get any money. And I went from being able to do 5 calls a day to driving somewhere, doing 1, getting out the car, falling over, getting back in the car, driving home. So I was doing 1 call a day. So suddenly I wasn't really able to perform anymore. And you can imagine the state I was in that call. And selling was like the last thing I was able to do, really.
Many years ago, I also door-to-door double glazing, funny enough, and the managers would all go off and play golf, exactly as you explained, and I would be out there knocking on the doors, and some of the younger guys would go off and play golf. They wanted to be in with the managers, but I made more sales. But then, because I was also in a similar situation that to you on my own with the kids, the urgency of wanting to make a sale when you're sitting there face to face, it changes the whole 100%. Dynamic of how you sell, how you speak to the people. It changes.
It does. And the customers pick up on it. Absolutely. And what I was selling was something where you would go and see everyone every couple of months. So it was consumables. So it meant you built up a lovely relationship with these people. And when I had my children, I had twins first. And so we did a lovely sweepstake all about like when I would go into labour and all of this. And then when I had my son, we had another sweepstake and they were all interested to see the scan photos. And as I say, it was a male dominated industry. So I'm like, I can't believe I'm showing you my insides. Really weird. And then the baby photos, and it was just lovely because my customers were my like work family. So whereas, you'd normally have maybe social stuff with your colleagues in an office, if you're in an office type situation or a team, mine would be with them, with my customers. So at Christmas, I'd do like a lucky dip and things like that. That was great. I loved it. I really loved it. And I hate the phone. And I think that's probably come from trying to make appointments over the years, because you'd make like 20 phone calls to get 1 appointment. And I don't like people saying no to me. Very few people do. So I would just walk into places and people would generally see me. In fact, I would generally walk in and say, hello, can I use your toilet? Because everyone you meet gives you a cup of tea. And so the knock-on effect is that you need the loo by the time you get the next ones. And by the time I'd come out from the loo, they'd got a seat ready for me and a steaming cup of tea for me. And then I'd sit and do the call. And it worked. So cold calling was my forte, really. Anyway, I've gone down a tangent.
No, that's fine. So I was sort of talking about how you've just literally highlighted again another strategy that you have, that you've brought in that's part of you. And that is that you've brought your family into your environment and you're working with some of your children and sort of passing on what you know and helping to sort of lift them up for whatever they want to do. But also in your courses, in your groups, in what you actually do and teach, in your actual business, you are very focused on building relationships with people and not just, oh, thanks for doing the course, what have you. Get people involved. I was going to ask you what you would think your superpower is, but do you know what? I think from my perspective, one of your superpowers is that you are awesome at building community, and that is so rare.
That's interesting. I'm happy hearing that, because like all communities, particularly online, on things like Facebook, I have quite a lot of lurkers that don't necessarily get involved, but they're there and they're still valuable and they still want the information and they're comfortable there and they're happy there. And I don't want to necessarily try and spend all the time trying to draw them out into a place where they don't really want to be. I'm happy for them to be there and what have you. So it means that when I put things on, I get kind of the same people interacting, and that's absolutely fine because that's what suits them. So like yourself, you will generally comment on things, generally join in, and there's like a group within a group of a subgroup of people who are interested in joining in and wanting to take part, but there will always be people in the background. And I do think sometimes people make a mistake of spending all their time and all their energy trying to get like every one person in the group to come in, and you think, well, people don't always want that. So I have 2 groups, a main group, which is for people who want to learn about print on demand. But I've also got the alumni group, which is where people who've done my courses or they've been my VIPs, they can come and we can showcase stuff that we've done. But we can also give updates because print on demand is growing. It's now a $5 billion industry. Most of it's in America. It's still very much in its infancy here in the UK. And for me and my alumni, my glorious esteemed alumni, as I like to call them, we're right at the beginning of something so phenomenal and so exciting. Look, it lights me up. I just love it.
It does light you up, and it's lovely because you bring with you all the strategies that you've been talking about through the conversation we've had. You meet people where they're at, you let people be who they are, you keep going, you're consistent, you understand, you have the values of being supportive, and you can see how you've brought all of that into your business. And it shows because by being able to sit where you are and do your own thing and feel like it continues to light you up, doesn't it? So when I asked you about how you inspire, how you motivate, you have the book by the bed. It's clear signs, my dear, of somebody who has just got the most positive vibe on life and is looking forward, but at the same time recognizes limitations. I mean, would that sound right?
Yeah, that sums me up. Absolutely. When I said about my poverty situation, when I was just not able to perform, at the time, I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, CFS, which has kind of, you learn techniques to deal with things, but it's kind of always going to be there now. And my children saw all this and they saw what it was like for me. As they grew up, they all got part-time jobs and they're very focused and very driven in a way that I think when I was their age, I just wasn't. So it's fascinating how they've seen that. And I really tried to make it so that they didn't get this whole lack mentality, but they learned at a very young age that they can go out and earn money. I say very young, 4. So they've all had part-time jobs. And one of them has their own business as a side hustle. And all 3 of them are members of my team. So either trained or training in doing merch for people, because once you get the hang of it, I'm not going to go all gooey about it again, but why wouldn't you? If you can do it for someone, why wouldn't you?
Well, no, exactly. And this is why you've inspired them. You've shown them that anything is possible. You've been through very difficult times and very challenging times, but what's pulled you through is the thought of moving forward, finding a way around things. And I think that's also when you hit onto, the print and demand, all the courses that you do, because you've got a nice variety to offer people wherever they are. Again, you're meeting people where they are. And that's what helps people feel and step into the community and step into your world. And I just want to say that for anybody who would like to step into Jo's world, please do, because you will not regret this for a second. To have somebody in your world who is as vibrant and real and honest and funny and just kind. We need more people like you, Jo. And I'm not just saying this, gushy. This is the thing that's behind the strategy. And for me, pulling out what's behind the strategy of you being your business owner for where you are now is that you are you.
Yeah, I think you have to bring the essence of you in, because I would love to be Karen Brady. For a start, I don't like football. But secondly, she has the essence of Karen Brady is very different to the essence of me. And I cannot emulate that. I just can't. That's not me. That's not the way I work, the way I run things. It's no good trying to put on this gloss, this veneer of somebody else. You are you, and you will fundamentally always end up going back to that. Hilary Devey, and bless her, who obviously passed away recently. She was a big hero of mine, and she was herself.
Yeah. So, I mean, just to sort of round it up, because I could actually talk to you for hours, but I'm sure that our listeners are probably going to have something to do and something else to do, and listening to us all day. We like to think that we're riveting in our conversation, but I'm actually fascinated by all this. And so just to sort of bring it all together, that you've sort of said there, it's good to be inspired by others. It's good to see what we can take from them and use them as role models. But what works for them may not work for you, but there is an essence, there are some key things that they may be doing or a perspective they may have that actually would fit with you, because not everybody is going to love us for who we are. They're going to go off and find somebody else, because that's the beauty of this, isn't it? It's recognizing that if we want to have people around us that are going to lift us up, then the only way we can do that is to be who we are, so that they know that when they're in our world, this is what we expect from you. We expect honesty, kindness, and if you're not up for that, then go and find somebody else.
That's it. And it's exhausting trying to be something you're not.
Yeah, Absolutely. Jo, thank you so much for being here. Thank you very, very much for sharing with us insights behind the strategy of how the podcast queen, thank you so much for sharing your insights in how the pod queen came to be, because you really, really are. Your knowledge on this is just stupendous. And that is because you just there on the button, on the know. So anybody that wants to know about it, please go and find Jo. And I'm going to look forward to seeing you and speaking to you again in a few months' time, aren't I? So thanks, Jo. Thank you so much.
You've just listened to a Strategy Success Lab production of Behind the Strategy with Kate Whitley, bringing you inspiring guests and motivating messages to challenge your perspective and simplify your strategy.
Don't forget to subscribe and pop over to strategysuccesslab.com for more exciting episodes. And if you've loved this episode, go and share it with someone else who needs it today.